Pitchers and catchers have reported, so has the injury report. I'll be breaking down the biggest injury news on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. My counterpart, Dominic Martino, couldn't be here today, but you got me, and we're going to have a good one. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below, subscribe to the channel, and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. After that, you might as well join our subtext platform where you can send us a screenshot of that review, and you'll gain a chance to get into our coveted listener league. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more when new customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. To get started today. All right, guys. Like I said at the top of the show, pitchers and catchers are officially reported. Baseball is almost here. And also with that, unfortunately, comes the injury report. And we got a lot of things going on, a lot of big names, I feel. Guys that I was drafting a lot. We're gonna get into that. And, sadly, this comes all year round. I mean, unfortunately, there's usually about 2 to 3 guys that go down to TJ. Every spring training, unfortunately. Not that I wish it on a knock on wood. Along with that, soft tissue issues pop up, shoulder strainings, so much more. Plus, guys are turning from injury and trying to gauge, when they'll be back, if they'll be ready for opening day, or if there's going to be, some delay in that as well, where they're coming back, missing a month or 2 or 3 or 17. Who knows? But, ultimately, I got you. I'm going to be covering and breaking down all the biggest news of the injury reports today. And let's hop right into it, all right? This one really makes me sad. I was so high on him this year, and that's Kyle Bradish. Looks like he has a sprained UCL. So, whenever you hear sprained UCL, usually it follows, TJ. But, the Orioles have opted to do the injections, which, they all think because it worked with one pitcher, I forget the name, that it's going to work with every pitcher. So it always just delays it about 2-3 months because it's never, oh, hey, we get these injections and he's fine. No, he's going to miss 2-3 months at the minimum. And then if they do decide, hey, you need to go and get go get TJ, then he's going to miss pretty much all 2024 and not be back until after the All-Star break of 2025. So I just feel like it's a little bit of mismanagement. I hope that for his sake and for fantasy's sake that the injections work and he's back by like mid-May. But history kind of tells us and shows us that it's very rare, and unfortunately we're not going to see him till then. So it's like, let's get the ball rolling. Let's just take a little bit more aggressive. Let's get him back. Let's get him healthy, and we can see him in 2025. If you do it now, he'll be ready for the start of the season. At most, miss a couple weeks of April, but unfortunately, no. So Kyle Bradish, pretty much just take him off your rankings. Do not draft him. If anything, draft him with your last pick. If they haven't announced that he has TJ, and maybe you stash him, throw him on the IL slot, see what happens, and kind of like roll from there. But I'm pretty much going to say it's going to be a waste of a pick. But anyway, let's keep moving. Let's talk about our next guy here. Another one that same team that's really disappointing is Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar doesn't seem like it's as extreme oblique injury. They don't really seem too concerned. It's really on his left side. He was, doing some long tosses and, things just got all tight and whatnot. These things happen. My only problem is it's soft tissue issues, right? Like it's something that you never want to see because these things can come back. And with oblique injuries, they could put guys out for like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before you see them out on the field. And then they got to do rehab. And then, there you go. There's 2 months. And I'm hoping it's not 2 months. I hope that, they're gonna just let him figure it out. I mean, everybody's still getting loose. Some guys may not have the best off-season routines where they keep their body fit in the top end shape, and it takes a little time to round up. I know I was a high school athlete, and I did not take care of myself the second the season was over. It always took me about 2 to 3 weeks to just get my body, you know, back out of shock from actually doing workouts, and then I was fine. So I mean, it could be that. I mean, also, Gunnar Henderson is young, so he's got that young body where he probably could bounce back, and it's okay to pretty much just eat, peanut M&Ms every day during the off season. I don't know, but ultimately, this is a wait and watch right now. It's not going to affect his draft price for me right now. I'm still drafting him if I'm drafting today. Um, you know, Obviously, it's going to come with a little bit more risk, but ultimately, Gunnar Henderson, I still think is a great talent. Uh, I don't know if this is gonna slow his progress down. Ultimately, I don't want to talk in circles, but if they're not concerned with it, I'm not gonna be so concerned with it, but I am going to keep an eye on it because if you're smart, you're not drafting till, last week before baseball starts, before opening day, that weekend. So we have plenty of time to figure out the ebbs and flows of this injury with Gunnar Henderson. But let's go on. Another one that I am a little upset about, and this one I kind of am concerned, and that's Josh Young. Josh Young popped up on the injury list, um, injury report, the other day. Third baseman Josh Young experiencing some calf discomfort while taking some ground balls this morning per beat. He will get an MRI. Um, you know, this is not something that I want to hear. Um, you know, Guys tweaking calf muscles and things like that. Now, again, this is common. Getting back into shape. Another young dude probably doesn't have, good off-season practices either. And, it may just take him a little bit. Josh Young, great talent. If he plays, he's going to be great. I don't know if it really delays his time, but, you know, I just it's disheartening. I hate seeing soft tissue. I rather see somebody break a finger because then you know what to expect, or like break a bone or something like that. Knock on wood, not that I wish that on anybody, but there's a little bit more of a timeline, a little bit more of like an understanding of how long this injury could take, and the reoccurrence is obviously not going to happen unless they do something stupid. So with these soft tissue issues, we really got to be concerned. Um, Again, Josh Young, it's not affecting his draft price now, but I'm going to see how it elevates. If it's still here in 2 weeks, he may be falling in my rankings just a tad. Stay tuned for that because you know what? These things are never, never, never a good thing when I starts hearing soft tissue issues. And before we move on and I talk about some good news, and even though I opened up on a negative point, I got two pieces of good news with Nestor Cortez and Riley Green. But before that, I got a great sponsor for you. We're talking about BackBlaze. BackBlaze makes backing up and accessing your data astronomically easier. With unlimited cloud backup for Macs, PCs, and businesses for just $99 a year, you can easily protect your business data through a centrally managed admin. Backblaze is easy to deploy across multiple workstations with various deployment options. Access your backed up data from anywhere in the world with the web app or on their iOS or Android app. With Backblaze, you can restore by mail, hard drive with your data shipped to your door, buy a hard drive to restore, send your hard drive back within 30 days, and get a full refund. Backblaze has assisted over 55 billion files restored for customers. Receive fully featured no risk guarantee trial of Blackblaze at blackblaze.com/slash locked on MLB. Go there and play with it and start protecting yourself from potential bad times. Start today. Locked On has launched its first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you, covering the 24/7 top stories of the day with local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel, which it actually is pretty dope. You know, Based off of your location, you get some awesome stuff. Get to see and find podcasts you probably didn't see or know about, and end up getting a little bit more following. Also, got another great one for you, and a little bit more important in my opinion. We're introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, the Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Dive into this offseason with Dom and I as we provide you tiered-based rankings with over 100 outfielders and starting pitchers ranked, prospect insights, sleepers, breakouts, busts, and personalized draft grades. Have burning questions? We've got the answers. As the season unfolds, rely on us for our dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up alerts, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy leagues by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where your path to victory begins. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience. Oh, yeah. Now, normally I'd hand this off because I hate doing that much talking in a row, but hey, I'm alone here today, and we're just going to keep going. You got a whole lot of Matt, and you're stuck with me. So, yeah, buddy. We're going to keep rolling. We got some good news. I mentioned right before the break, Nestor Cortes. Nestor Cortes seems to be trending in the right direction, coming off that shoulder injury last year, where he was, had a limited season. But ultimately, it says that he expects to be ready for the beginning of the season. He's lined up to pitch one day in Mexico City games, but depending on how he's bouncing back, he should be, ready to go for opening day. Exciting news. We all know what we expected out of Nestor Cortes after his 2022 season. You know, I'm just hoping this is all sticking because, man, Nestor Cortes could seriously bring you some true value here. I just want to read off what he did in 2022 because I'm pretty much just going to remove 2023 from my memory due to the fact that he was hurt. 158 innings, 163 strikeouts, a 2.44 ERA with a 0.92 WHIP. Absolutely phenomenal numbers. And just so I know his actual, what do you call it? Um, Performance was real. His fit fielding and pinning pitching, which is pretty much a stat that shows you, if he had an average defense behind him, what his actual ERA would be, and it was a 3.14. So ultimately, that shows me that the pitching and the ERA was legit. Maybe a little bit bolstered by the Yankees defense at the time, even though I don't know how that happened. I think he just got lucky with a lot of things in terms of that. But ultimately, I think that Nestor is going to have a phenomenal season. That ERA is definitely obtainable. The strikeouts definitely can be over a K per nine for sure. And keep it going, keep the Yankees lineup rolling. I'm not just a Yankee fan in that aspect. For fantasy too, I love him. Being that I have him ranked in my top 36, Nestor Cortes I think is going to be a true value in drafts too because he's going pretty cheap as well. So you'll be able to get him as like your fourth or fifth pitcher, and that's a nice price because last year we were drafting him as our number two. So significant difference, and you know what? You're going to be able to get him at a value, and if he can manage to stay healthy, it's going to be a real treat. So let's move on to this last piece of good news, and then we go back to the negative. Mr. Riley Green returning from Tommy John's. Um, it's weird for me at least. It's becoming more and more common of these hitters getting Tommy John. I didn't never seen this many dudes go down in a season with this, but ultimately Riley Green looks like he's expected to play some grapefruit league games this year. Um, Once the schedule begins, he said that the team is planning to mix in a little DH and a little outfield, which is, really good progress because if you remember Bryce Harper, Bryce didn't get out there and, you know, start throwing the ball or even playing the field for about 2 months. So this is a great timeline. Granted, Riley Green has had a little bit more time to heal, but the fact that Riley Green is going out in the outfield is big. I like it. I guarantee he'll probably only play about maybe 1 to 2 games a week in the outfield to start, if that. And then as we get deeper into the season, he'll probably have more of a full-time role in the outfield, barring no setbacks and things like that. So Riley Green, right now, I think should be drafted. I love the dude. The upside could be astronomical in that sense. He was a top end prospect, and maybe we'll see that breakout because I last year it was cut pretty much short because of the Tommy John's injury, and he was a top prospect. And you know what? I think he could show it out. You know, again, last year he really didn't get to do all that much, but in that short time, I'm not mad at his performance. 378 at bats, 51 runs, 19 doubles, 4 triples, 11 bombs, 37 ribs, 7 stolen bases, batted 288. And quite honestly, I don't even think his power was really on display. I think that maybe this elbow injury was playing a little bit more and kind of zapping his power, and wasn't allowing it full extent clearly since he went off. So maybe we'll get him to go and have like a Bryce Harper second half, but maybe sooner and have a little bit more. So I'm expecting big things out of Riley Green. I expect the breakout this year. I'm pretty excited for him. He's in my top 40 outfielder. And I'm drafting him with confidence this year, unless I hear otherwise, where the injury is then, you know, causing a little backslide and preventing him from making being on the opening day lineup. But we shall see. More to come. This is still early. We are February, and we got a whole lot of baseball to go. So let's keep going. Let's move to a more controversial thing. Um, there's a lot going on for this dude, Mr. Kenley Jansen. At first we were going in, and my guy had trade rumors swarming around of, will he even be here? What's his role going to be on the new team if he's acquired by somebody else, things like that. So, it's not really great, but ultimately he's now, I think the trade value has gone away. If anything, he'll be moved mid-season, which will hurt his value as a whole. Just because if he does get moved, will he have the closing job on another team? Will he go more in a setup position? He is on the older side of the spectrum of age. So like there's that. And also too, he's dealing with some muscle soreness. And he's limited right now. Kenley Jansen has always been, just a great, great player. But, Father Time could be catching up to Jansen as well. He's been pitching this league for a long time. So I'm trying to pull up his age real quick. I don't know it off the top of my head, funny enough. He's been in this league since 2010. My guy is 36 years old. So, you know, you don't want to hear an older dude start, dealing with some muscle soreness before the season even starts. And it's just not looking good for him. I'm actually going to react a little early to this and move him down in my rankings. I've been targeting him a lot. I'm now going to move on from him and start figuring out where I'm going to take a closer now. So stay tuned for that, because I felt like he was a nice value. Even if he were to get moved preseason, I felt like there was a better chance for him to walk into a closer job. But now that he's not going to be traded at all, and is probably going to come more trade deadline due to the fact that he's injured, I don't know. It could be where he goes back to the Dodgers and he's more of a setup man, or he could, strike gold and end up in in Dallas, Texas, in Texas for the Rangers, and ultimately take the job from Leclerc, because Leclerc isn't a steady one either, where Kenley Jansen can have Darren in a prime spot. So it's about a 50-50 ball, and with Kenley Jansen, I'm just going to move away and not feel comfortable at him being my one, which is where I pretty much have been drafting him at. So he'll be falling. But before I move on and we start talking about a little bit of names that I've been waiting for the last couple of years, a guy for the last couple of years, which is Walker Buehler, see where his injury status is when he'll return. Also, Justin Verlander popped up on the injury list, and man, that's got me concerned. So stick around for that, and we'll be right back after this break. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet or more. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA games, players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on and shoot that shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And we are back in the final stretch of this podcast. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. And I want to remind everybody, please join us on Subtext. And, you know, if you can, drop us a review and send us a screenshot, and you'll get an entry into the lottery to be getting in the listener league. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time, and you don't want to miss out. So let's talk about Mr. Verlander. I mentioned him right before the break, and he's got me worried. And you know what? 41-year-old man getting hurt, dealing with, you know, a shoulder issue again, which again last year was the major something shoulder injury that kept him and McKenzie out for a good chunk of the season last year. Now, luckily, Verlander was able to return and be fine. But again, at age 41, which is next week is his birthday, which makes him 41, um, body isn't recovering as well. And he even said it, it's much different from being 25. I mean, man, you've been pitching in the bigs for 15 years, 16 years. Excuse me. So, it's troubling. Now, I'm still drafting Justin Verlander. I am going to move him down in my rankings too. As to where yet is unknown. I got to do a little bit more homework, but I didn't have him highly rated, ranked anyway. But ultimately, this gives me a little bit of scare. Yes, it's still early in spring training, but one factor of the age, two, with the shoulder injury did to him last year, kind of scares me. And ultimately, you got to play that in the factor. I mean, you don't want to walk away with him in the draft as like your four, and then you're in trouble going in trying to replace him. So ultimately, I want to just like push him back a little bit and see where life takes us. Hopefully we see an improvement and you know we don't see any dips in velocity or anything of the sort, and I could feel more comfortable and put it back to where he's currently ranked. But right now, I got to approach it and stay like water and kind of just say, okay, Justin Verlander, you and I are just may not be on the same team this year, and it is what it is. But you know what? Justin Verlander, when healthy, it will provide great fantasy value. Just a matter of production, I mean, but just a matter of where you're getting him and if he's going to be healthy to start the season. Let's move on. Let's talk about Walker Buehler, another guy I mentioned right before the break. And somebody like, if healthy, I have him ranked as like the number one starting pitcher in baseball. Um, Maybe now probably more like 3 or 4, but we're having more setbacks now. We're talking May return coming back from Tommy John's, and I'm getting a little scared. He couldn't make it back last year, and now he's still not coming back till May, and there's no real set date. So ultimately, what that tells me is, when they have an undetermined date and we're going into well over 16 months of Tommy John's, that says, hey man, something else is going on. I hope they don't have to redo the surgery or anything of the sort like that they're not telling us. Maybe there's something that's sweeping under the rug. But right now, like if I'm not touching Walker Buehler at his current price. I hope this price falls because then I'd like to stash him. But like I am not touching him with a 10-foot pole unless he's like the last pick of my draft. Walker Buehler is at this point right now untouchable for me. And even so, like, unless you have like 4 IL spots, I ain't stashing them either. If you got like one or two, don't even try and stash it because with the tag of undetermined return date, that is never good. And you could be stashing him for a month. You could be stashing him until they say, okay, we had to redo the surgery. And he's done for the season. And you could have dropped guys or been holding him where you could have been sliding guys in and then picking up somebody else that could have been producing in your lineup. So Walker Buehler right now, really bad news. And you know what? Just stay as far as humanly possible away, unless again your last pick. Then if you drop him, you drop him. But do not invest high capital on this dude because it's gonna backfire. Let's move on to Mr. Braxton Garrett. Braxton Garrett, one of my fantasy, sweethearts. I love Braxton Garrett. And oh, I apologize. I got my son in here with me. You might hear a little moaning and groaning. I'll get you to like baseball one day, Luke. But anyway, Braxton Garrett, pitcher of my Miami Marlins. Um, Slow play, started camp, sore left shoulder, pitching shoulder, so not good. Garrett was still allowed to throw though in each of the last 2 days, which is good. So it doesn't appear that Miami or him is concerned about, whether he's going to play right now. It's a TBD situation, something to highlight, not going to affect his rankings just yet. Braxton Garrett has, ultimately been able to pitch a full season. So, and he's still young. So I'm gonna wait it out. I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. Maybe this resolves itself. They're still letting him throw. That's a big green thumbs up. If he wasn't throwing, I'd be concerned. It's just one of those things. But right now, I'm just gonna say, hey, Braxton Garrett, maybe if there's a better choice, and now that's the tiebreaker, sure, go with the tiebreaker, go with the other guy. But if Braxton Garrett's your guy, you pick him, especially if the price is right. So just keep an eye out. Let's monitor this. We still have a lot of baseball to go before we have to actually make some decisions, but definitely something to keep in the back of the head there. All right. We got one last guy. It might be a shorter podcast today. We'll see. We got Mr. John Means. Dude means well, but can't seem to get on the field here. John Means here. Let's see here. John Means elbow is behind schedule. Surprise, surprise. But Means suffered a flare up with his surgically repaired elbow. Um, while previous indications had been that the southpaw was past the issue, clearly the team still plans to proceed cautiously with him in spring training. You know, you never want to hear a setback, especially with Tommy Johns, especially when he had the opportunity to play and he didn't last year. So, oh boy, we got a scary one. Oh, I'm sorry, not last year. He did not have a shot at playing last year. He got it repaired. But anyway, I'm not really happy with it. I'm not really looking at drafting him. He wasn't really even on my draft board to begin with. You know, John Means is just somebody that I say if he's available on the waiver wires and he's about to come back from the injury list, then you pick him up and you stash him for a week or two. But he's not somebody I'm drafting. He's not somebody I would say concern yourself with. I think there will be a rotation spot for him when he's healthy, especially with the whole Bradish issue going on. So, that is the one indicator that I think he will pitch. It's just a matter of when. And you know what? When it comes to this, it is what it is. So, with that, guys, I got nobody left on the list, but I want to, calm this negative air that I put out there with all these pitchers and say, like, hey, listen, most of these injuries are not as significant as we would say, as I would think. The only real one is really Bradish, and I would say Verlander is another one that I'm taking very serious. Everybody else, and Kenley Jansen. Everybody else, we'll monitor. We'll probably review these guys in like a couple weeks and see where they stand, and then we'll give you a better outlook on what to expect from these players come the season. So stay tuned for that and more. Guys, thank you for hanging in there with me, going over these sad injuries and whatnot. We'll see you on Monday for Mock Draft Monday, where probably Dom is going to be reviewing my draft, and it's going to be a fun one. I don't know where I'm drafting out yet, but hey, with all these injuries, it's going to change my draft strategy a lot. So I'm excited to draft and see what kind of team I'm going to put up. But with that being said, guys, thank you and have a great weekend.